Before we dive into this thrilling story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. Your support keeps us going. Now, let's get into it. I'm not sure when the house stopped feeling like a home. Maybe it was the first time I walked in and found Clara's heels by the door, those red stilettos she used to wear on nights out back in college. She said she only brought them to wear for interviews, but they never moved from that spot day after day. Or maybe it was earlier than that. Maybe it was when Marcus started humming in the kitchen again, tunes he used to whistle when we first dated, but hadn't touched in years. I told myself he was just in a better mood, grateful for a quieter life. That was a lie. 1,000 tiny lies built the new version of our life, and I was the only one living in the old draft. The day I lost everything was not stormy. It was sunny, absurdly so. Birds chirped outside the car window as I drove home early from work. My last meeting had been cancelled, and I thought, stupidly, that it would be sweet to surprise Marcus with takeout from the Korean place he loved. I'd even grabbed a bottle of wine. We hadn't done a surprise dinner in a while. Being 5 months, 3 weeks, and 4 days, not that I was counting. When I turned onto our street, Clara's car wasn't in the driveway. That should have meant something. I remember staring at the empty spot and feeling relief, not suspicion. It meant the house was just Marcus and me for once. A rare occurrence since Clara moved back to town after her breakup. I'd let her into our home, into our routines, into the quiet little life I had built with Marcus after years of clawing my way into something resembling peace. The front door was unlocked. I called out, "Marcus?" and heard faint music coming from upstairs. Our bedroom. My hands were full, so I nudged the door shut with my foot, setting the bag of food on the kitchen counter. The hallway smelled faintly of vanilla and musk, Clara's perfume. She always sprayed too much of it. I'd mentioned it once. She'd laughed and said, "It's just scent memory, Evie. You don't want people to forget you." I padded upstairs quietly, not out of suspicion, just instinct. The closer I got to the bedroom, the louder the music became. Some ambient Spotify playlist, Marcus's choice. I pushed open the door without knocking. She was sitting on the edge of my bed. My bed. Wearing one of Marcus's white button-down shirts, the top 3 buttons undone. Her legs crossed neatly, bare. Her hair was damp, pulled up into a bun. Her skin glowed with post-shower warmth. She didn't flinch when she saw me. Didn't cover herself. Didn't speak. I stood in the doorway, frozen. "Where's Marcus?" I asked. She tilted her head. "In the shower." As if that explained anything. As if her being half naked in my bedroom, smelling like my shampoo, was something that happened every day. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but then the bathroom door opened behind her. Steam billowed out, followed by Marcus in a towel. His hair was wet. His eyes were wide. And he stopped dead when he saw me. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Clara smiled. That soft, smug, knowing smile I had come to loathe. "Hey, Evie. You're home early." Marcus scrambled for words. "Evelyn, this isn't what you think." I laughed. A short, bitter, animal sound. "Really? Then please. Enlighten me." He looked at Clara, then back at me. "We were just talking." "Talking." I repeated the word like a foreign language. "While she's in your shirt. In our bedroom. While you're dripping wet from a shared shower?" Clara shrugged, stretching her arms behind her. "It just happened, Evie. Don't be so dramatic." Something inside me snapped. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was grief. A black pit opening under my ribs, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. I turned and walked out. Down the stairs. Out the front door. I didn't take my purse. Didn't take my phone. Just my keys. I got in the car and drove, without direction, for what felt like hours. When I finally pulled over, it was at a gas station off the highway. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, shaking. Everything buzzed in my head like static. The betrayal was too loud to think through. That night, I stayed in a motel. The kind with scratchy sheets and bad lighting. I used the front desk phone to call a friend, Maya. She didn't ask questions. Just said, "Come stay with me." By the next morning, I'd filed for divorce. The first night at Maya's place, I didn't sleep. Her guest room was warm and quiet, but my body felt like it was vibrating. I lay there staring at the ceiling, every moment from the day before playing on repeat in my mind. The image of Clara sitting on my bed. Marcus's soaked face turning pale as he caught sight of me. That smug little smile of hers. "Don't be so dramatic." The words looped over and over, as if they were trying to convince me that maybe, somehow, I was overreacting. That it wasn't betrayal. That it wasn't the deepest cut imaginable. But I wasn't overreacting. I knew that. They'd gutted me. There was no poetic metaphor for it. No complicated psychology to unpack. They had slept together. Lied to my face. And done it under my roof, in the bed I made every single morning, with the pillows turned just so. That kind of filth doesn't come off with hot water and an apology. Maya had left a pot of tea by my door with a note that said, "Don't talk until you want to. I'll be here when you do." It made me cry harder than anything else that day. Over the next few weeks, I floated through a haze of logistics and numbness. The divorce process began quickly. I'd kept my maiden name, thank God, and we had no children. The house was under both our names, the savings were split. At first, Marcus said I could keep it all. Guilt. But a few days later, I got a call from his lawyer. He wanted half. Clara's voice echoed behind that move. I could hear her even when she wasn't there. That was always her talent, making herself present in places she hadn't earned. I emptied the joint savings into a private account before he could touch it. Maya helped me find a lawyer who wasn't just competent, but ruthless. She knew all the tricks, they tried a few of course. Claimed I was emotionally unstable. That I had abandoned the marriage. That I had no right to punish them for falling in love. Falling in love. Like it was a song lyric. Like it just happened and nobody could be blamed. I moved out before the hearing. I didn't want to be anywhere near that house. Every time I walked through the front door, I could see the ghosts of them. Laughing. Whispering. Pressed up against my kitchen counter. My couch. My memories. The worst part wasn't picturing them together. It was realizing they had done it without shame. That they had convinced themselves they were victims of a story they created. They were just meant to be. They didn't mean to hurt anyone. Clara posted a photo of them on Facebook less than 2 weeks after I left. Marcus kissing her cheek. Her caption. Feeling loved, red heart. And then she tagged me. Tagged me. I stared at the notification for 5 full minutes before I deleted the app. I was shaking. Not out of heartbreak, out of rage. I didn't respond. I didn't comment. I didn't play her game. 10 minutes later, she texted me. Sorry sis, didn't mean to tag you. No hard feelings, okay? Hope we can still be close. You'll meet your soulmate someday too, 2 hearts. I blocked her number. Then I blocked my mother. My father hadn't said a word throughout the whole process, not even when I called to tell them what happened. He just grunted and said, "That's unfortunate. Mom was worse. She tried to play both sides." "It's terrible, Evie," she said over the phone. "But your sister deserves happiness too. You'll find someone else. And maybe we can put this all behind us someday." That was the last straw. I hung up. And I meant it. No contact. With anyone. Ever again. I relocated to Minnesota, partly because it was far, and partly because no one in my family had any reason to look for me there. I got a job at a small architecture firm, quiet and unassuming. I found a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city, overlooking a lake. It was gray and still in the winter. Serene in a way that didn't ask me to be okay. It just let me be. I'd never had that before. At first, I tried to date. One guy took me out to dinner, asked about my past, then interrupted me 5 minutes in to tell me about his ex-wife and how she never understood him. Another date spent the whole night bragging about his startup that was definitely going public. I deleted the dating apps after that and told myself I was done. For good. But Maya, ever the schemer, refused to give up. On my 36th birthday, she invited me to a soft launch of a new restaurant, an upscale bar with a rustic modern feel. She claimed it was just a girls' night. What she failed to mention was that the owner, James, was her cousin. And he was also recently divorced. When he came out from the kitchen, I didn't even realize he was the chef. He was tall, bearded, quiet. His hands looked like they'd built something. Not just food, but a life. He greeted Maya with a bear hug, then turned to me with a simple smile. "Happy birthday," he said. "Let me feed you something you'll never forget." And he did. The food was incredible. But it was the way he moved that got me, the careful, deliberate kindness in everything he did. He never pushed conversation, never asked invasive questions. Just brought out dish after dish, explained the ingredients, asked if I liked wine or cocktails. And when I looked up at one point and caught him watching me from across the bar, he didn't look away. That was the beginning. Our first date happened 2 weeks later. He picked me up in a truck that smelled like fresh leather and cinnamon. He drove slowly, spoke slowly, but when he laughed, it was like a thunderclap, deep, genuine, rumbling from his chest. I told him about Marcus. About Clara. About everything. He didn't interrupt once. When I was done, he said, "I've got family like that too. Not the same story. But I know the weight. That was all he needed to say. Over the next year, we built something quiet and strong. His family welcomed me like they'd been waiting for me all along. His twin brother Jack ran the bar, and their mother came in every Friday with fresh flowers for the tables. I became part of the rhythm of the place. They knew about my past but never tiptoed around it. They never treated me like I was broken. Just like I belong. One night, I was sitting in the corner of the bar, sipping wine while James finished up a private dinner event, when a shadow fell across my table. It was Marcus. I didn't recognize him at first. He looked polished, hair trimmed, wearing a clean navy jacket. He looked like he'd dressed up for something. I blinked, heart plummeting, stomach twisting. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. He pulled out the chair across from me without waiting for permission. I'm sorry. For everything. Clara and we're divorcing. I didn't say anything. She cheated. He continued. With 2 married guys. It's been going on for a while. I don't expect anything from you, Evelyn. I just thought maybe we could talk. For closure. That's all. I stared at him. Then I smiled. You think I owe you closure? I asked. No, he said quickly. Look, I know I screwed up. But we had 9 years together. That meant something, didn't it? I leaned forward, my voice low. Yes. It meant something. And you burned it to the ground. So no, I owe you nothing. You got what you wanted, remember? The golden girl. The whirlwind passion. The fantasy. How's that working out? He looked down. She's living with my parents now. Jobless. Broke. And I've got nothing. I nodded slowly. Sounds like a return on investment. James appeared beside me then, quiet as ever. He looked at me, then at Marcus. Want me to kick him out? He asked. I shook my head. No. Not yet. Marcus tried to smile. Look, I know I was stupid. But maybe we can. I cut him off. Let me ask you something, Marcus. When you were with her, did it feel worth it? Did the excitement outweigh the guilt? He hesitated. I thought it did. For a while. And now? His voice cracked. It wasn't worth it. I stood. That's all I needed to hear. James? James stepped forward. You heard her. Out. Marcus glanced around. The bartender had stopped pouring. 2 waiters stood nearby. All of them watching him. He stood, tucked his tail, and walked out. And I never saw him again. The day the letter arrived, it looked like any other piece of junk mail. I almost tossed it in the recycling without opening it. No return address. Cheap envelope. But something about the handwriting stopped me. I'd know that looped cursive anywhere. My mother's. It had been over 3 years since I'd seen her handwriting. My stomach tightened as I carefully slid a finger beneath the flap and peeled it open. Inside was a card, the kind you'd buy at a gas station. Glittery sunflowers on the front, the words, New Beginnings, etched in silver. When I opened it, a piece of heavy paper slipped out and fluttered to the floor. It was a wedding invitation. I picked it up slowly. My fingers went cold. Clara Whitmore and Marcus Lane. Joyfully invite you to celebrate their marriage. Saturday, June 17th. Cedar Grove Vineyard, Missouri. Taped inside was a photo of them. A professionally shot image of Clara and Marcus hugging in a sunflower field. Her face tilted toward the sun, his lips pressed to her cheek. The caption read, It took time, but we found our way. At the bottom of the card was a handwritten note. We hope you'll come, Evelyn. Clara would love for you to stand with her, just as she stood with you at your wedding. Let's put the past behind us. Love, Mom and Dad. I stood there for a long time, staring at the invitation, feeling my hands tremble. Not from sadness. From rage. Stand with her? As what? Her sponsor from hell? Her maid of dishonor? The audacity. The sheer delusion it took to assume I would not only attend, but participate in the celebration of my sister marrying the man she stole from me. I dropped the letter, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of wine. Then I sat down at the dining table, opened my laptop, and went straight to Facebook. Blocked. Every one of them. I thought that would be the end of it. I deleted my old account years ago, but apparently someone gave them my new one. I suspected a distant cousin. A leak in the wall. I sealed it immediately. For a while, everything went quiet again. James and I kept growing stronger. I started working part-time as an office manager for the restaurant group, now that his cousin Jack had bought in and they were opening a second location. I found joy in the details, scheduling shifts, ordering wine, fixing menu typos. It was a simple, focused rhythm, and I loved it. We didn't plan for children. But life has a way of slipping surprises between your fingers. I was late one month. Then, too, I thought it was stress, or early menopause. Then I took the test, sitting alone in the tiny bathroom of our apartment. 2 pink lines. I didn't cry. I smiled. James proposed that night. We were on the back patio, watching the stars. He planned a whole speech, I think, but he never made it past. I want you beside me forever. I said yes before he even opened the box. Our son, Luca, was born the following spring. That was the first time I heard from my mother again. An email this time. No subject line. Just a bland apology and an inquiry. I heard you had a baby. Would love to see pictures. Grandparents deserve to know their grandchild. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed. You do not have a grandchild. I am not your daughter. Thus, my children are not related to you. If you want grandchildren, I suggest you ask Clara to do what she does best. Then I blocked the email. For a while, that was enough. But silence is never permanent with people like them. They see your absence as permission. Your healing as weakness. They don't understand peace unless they're the ones dictating its terms. It began slowly. Friend requests from strange accounts. Messages from names I didn't recognize. All with the same tone: regret, sadness, hope. We miss you, Evelyn. Your mother cries for you every night. Clara is struggling. She needs her sister. I ignored them all. Then came the package. Delivered by hand. No return label. Inside, a typed letter, a small gift box, and another envelope. The letter was clinical. Clara had been diagnosed with advanced kidney disease. Stage 4. Her doctors had told her that she needed a transplant within the year. The envelope contained her medical summary. Blood type. Compatibility notes. Lab reports. The gift box contained a necklace. A gold locket I'd given her when we were teenagers. She'd returned it, polished and restored, with a photo of us as kids tucked inside. I threw it all in the trash. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. A blocked number. I usually ignore those. But something made me answer. It was Clara. Her voice was weak. Hoarse. But unmistakably her. Evie, she said. Please. I just want to talk. I didn't respond. I know I hurt you. I was a terrible sister. But I'm dying. And you're the only match I have. I hung up. James found me standing in the kitchen, still holding the phone like it might bite. I told him everything. Every word. He listened, then said softly, What do you want to do? I want to go. I said. Not to help. Just to see it. To hear it. From their mouths. He nodded. I'll come with you. I shook my head. No. This is something I need to do alone. I called Clara the next morning. Told her I'd do the lab work in Minnesota. If I was a match, I'd consider traveling to St. Charles for further evaluation. A week later, the results came in. Perfect match. Of course. I booked a flight for the following week. Told no one except James and Maya. Left Luca with James's mother, who'd become more of a parent to me than my own ever was. When I landed, Clara had already been admitted. Her condition had worsened, fluid retention, nausea, shortness of breath. She looked older. Thinner. Her skin yellowed with toxins. My parents met me at the hospital. My mother wept. My father said nothing. Over the next 2 days, we sat through tests, consultations, blood work. The doctors were ecstatic. My numbers were incredible. My compatibility miraculous. They suggested we move forward quickly. She has months, maybe less, one specialist said. On the 3rd day, I asked to speak with everyone in Clara's room. The doctors stood to the side. My parents sat on the folding chairs. Clara lay in bed, tubes running from her arms. I stood at the foot of the bed and looked at them all. Do you know what it means? I said quietly. To be someone's only chance at survival? Clara's eyes welled. I do now. I nodded. Good. Then let me tell you something. I walked to her bedside, took her cold, shaking hand in mine, and leaned forward. I'm the only person who can save your life. And I'm not going to. Gasps. My mother surged forward. Evelyn, don't do this. I turned, voice steady. You all made choices. You burned bridges. And now the fire's come for you. But she'll die, my father said, finally speaking. I know, I said. She deserves to. I let go of Clara's hand. Walked to the door. And before leaving, I said without turning around, If you ever contact me again, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you regret it. Then I left. I thought leaving the hospital would feel like a victory, like a long-awaited exhale after years of holding my breath. Instead, the air outside felt heavier than the air in that sterile room. The sky over St. Charles was leaden, thick with humidity, and every breath tasted like memory. I didn't look back as I walked out the automatic doors. I didn't need to. Their faces were etched into my mind, the disbelief on my mother's, the open-mouthed horror of my father, and Clara, looking smaller than she ever had, lips parted as if she could form some final word to change everything. But there were no words left. They had spent them all years ago, when they chose convenience over loyalty, desire over decency, betrayal over blood. That choice had a price. And now they were looking at the bill. I didn't drive straight to the airport. I needed space. I needed silence. I found it in the least expected place, a tiny roadside diner on the edge of town, one of those aging joints with cracked vinyl booths and laminated menus stained with years of coffee. The waitress didn't know me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She brought me a cup of black coffee and a plate of oversalted fries, and that anonymity felt more like home than anything in Missouri ever had. I sat in that booth for over an hour, staring out the window at a gas station sign flickering half-dead in the distance. I thought about what I'd said, not with regret, but with precision. Every word had been calculated, not from malice, but from clarity. I didn't say what I said to shock them, I said it to finally draw the line they never believed I had the strength to draw. That was the truth they never could accept, that I didn't need them. Not anymore. Not ever. My phone buzzed once, twice, then went still. I didn't look. I didn't care. They would try again. Plead. Threaten. Maybe even promise things they had no intention of keeping. But I was done negotiating with ghosts. I left the diner just after sunset, the sky now bleeding orange and purple as I drove back toward the hotel. I thought of James, of Luca, of the life waiting for me, real, earned, and whole. The further I drove, the lighter I felt. The weight of Clara's illness didn't belong to me. Her fear, her panic, her crumbling world, that was the empire she'd built, brick by poison brick. And now it was collapsing. She wasn't just dying from kidney failure. She was dying from a lifetime of selfishness, from thinking the world would always give her what she wanted if she just smiled sweetly enough. But charm doesn't cure disease. And betrayal doesn't entitle you to mercy. By the time I reached the hotel, I knew I wouldn't be staying another night. I packed in silence, tossing my clothes into my bag with mechanical efficiency. I didn't glance at the mirror. I didn't want to see the reflection of the girl who had once believed family meant something. That girl was long gone. I left the key on the desk, nodded at the receptionist, and walked out without a word. At the airport, the TSA agent barely glanced at my ID. No one noticed the tremor in my hands or the exhaustion in my bones. I boarded the plane early, found my window seat, and leaned back as the engines hummed to life. As we lifted off, I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and whispered the words I hadn't said out loud in years. You deserve to die. I wasn't cursing her. I wasn't hoping for pain. I was simply naming a truth too many people were too afraid to speak. Some betrayals are so absolute, so unforgivable, that letting the person live with the consequences is the only justice. I didn't take her life. I just refused to save it. There's a difference. I didn't sleep on the flight. But I didn't cry either. I just stared into the darkness, watching the scattered stars above the wing, and waited to go home. When the wheels touched down in Minneapolis, I felt the exhale I had expected 2 days earlier. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just a quiet loosening of something deep inside my chest. The kind of release that only comes after you've done something irrevocable. I didn't text James right away. I just turned on my phone, watched the screen light up with missed calls and unread messages, none of them from him, thank God. Just the predictable flood from Missouri, my mother, my father, even a number labeled hospital admin. I deleted them all without opening a single one. That chapter was closed. No amount of guilt-drenched last-minute groveling would change that. I took a cab home. The night was cold, late spring still flirting with winter air. Our neighborhood was quiet, the streetlights glowing soft halos onto the pavement. When I stepped through the front door, the smell of cinnamon and oak hit me instantly. James must have baked something, or maybe just lit that candle I liked, the one that always made the house feel like fall. He was in the living room, curled on the couch with Luca asleep against his chest, both of them wrapped in a blanket. The TV was on mute, playing one of those slow documentaries about planets. James looked up the moment the door clicked shut and gave me that slow, crooked smile that always made my knees weak. Hey, he whispered. I stepped inside, dropped my bag, and sat on the edge of the couch, running a hand through Luca's hair. He stirred, then settled again. I leaned down and kissed his forehead. I miss you both, I said. We miss you more, James replied. We didn't talk much that night. I told him what happened, in brief. He nodded when he needed to, rubbed slow circles on my back when I paused, never interrupting. When I got to the part about what I said to Clara, he didn't flinch. He just said, "Good." And that one word told me everything I needed to know. The next morning, we went to the farmer's market like we always did on Saturdays. Luca picked out a basket of strawberries, face smeared red by the time we got home. The staff at the restaurant greeted me like I'd only stepped away for lunch, not vanished into the lion's den of my past. There were hugs, inside jokes. One of the waitresses slipped me a sticky note that said, "If you ever need someone disappeared, I know a guy." I laughed until I cried. No one judged me. No one asked if I regretted it. They just loved me. As is. That's when I realized something profound. Family is not blood. It's not history. It's not obligation. It's the people who look at your scars and choose to stay. Who don't ask you to forgive what you can't. Who don't try to rewrite your pain to make it more palatable. A few weeks later, the obituary came. Not from anyone I knew. Just a scanned clipping sent anonymously from someone in Missouri. Clara Whitmore, 34, passed peacefully after a lengthy illness. Survived by her parents. No mention of me. No mention of Marcus either. I didn't feel anything reading it. Not relief. Not triumph. Just stillness. Like the final note of a song long faded from memory. I kept the clipping. Not out of sentiment, but as proof. That chapter ended not when I walked away, but when I chose not to return. Marcus never contacted me again. I heard, through a cousin I still vaguely trusted, that he'd quietly left town shortly after Clara died. Apparently, the debts she left behind were staggering. She'd spent lavishly during her sickest months: travel, clothes, art. Always the show. Always the performance. My parents sold their house less than a year later. I don't know where they went. I don't care. My daughter was born the following spring. Her name is Elise. We didn't tell anyone back in Missouri. They don't deserve to know. Not who she is. Not how perfect her laugh is. Not how her tiny hands grasp my finger like they're anchoring the whole world. Sometimes, when I watch Luca help her with her blocks or kiss her cheek when she cries, I wonder if Clara ever really knew what family was. Not the word. Not the expectation. The truth. The love you build, not the love you demand. One evening, James and I were sitting on the back porch, watching the kids play in the yard, when he said, "You ever think about them anymore?" I didn't even hesitate. No. And it was true. Not the old ache, not the anger. Just quiet. Just peace. That's the funny thing about survival. It doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it just looks like breathing again without flinching. Loving without fear. Living without apology. Forgiveness is divine, they say. But I'm not divine. I'm real. And finally, after all these years, I'm free. Some life lessons don't arrive gently. They do not knock on your door with grace or whisper truths while you sleep. Some arrive with a wrecking ball, tearing through everything you thought was solid. And once the dust settles, you're left staring at the debris of your identity, trying to decide what's worth salvaging. The story of Evelyn is one such lesson, not about revenge, though on the surface it might seem that way, but about the power of boundaries, the truth about forgiveness, and the definition of family. Evelyn's journey began in betrayal, but it ended in clarity. And clarity is a hard-earned thing. Most people walk through life carrying the dead weight of expectations, what we owe our parents, what we owe our siblings, what we owe to those we once loved. We're told, especially as women, to preserve the peace, to forgive for the sake of harmony, to prioritize blood over well-being. But this story challenges all of that. It dares to ask, what if the people who hurt you the most are the ones you're told to love the hardest? What if healing isn't about reconciliation, but about letting go completely? Evelyn loved deeply. She trusted wholly. And for that, she was betrayed not just by her husband, but by the one person society insists should always be your ally, your sister. Clara didn't just take Evelyn's partner. She infiltrated her life, wore her clothes, slept in her bed, and smiled as she shattered her foundation. And yet, even after such a visceral betrayal, the world still expected Evelyn to be the bigger person. The family reached out not out of remorse, but out of need. Not to apologize, but to ask for more: her silence, her organ, her money. And that's where the core lesson sits: you owe nothing to the people who destroy you. Love without respect is poison. Family without loyalty is a cage. The people who break you do not have a right to your healing. Evelyn understood something most of us are still learning: forgiveness is not a performance. It's not a social duty. It's not something you do so others can feel better about what they did. Forgiveness, if it ever happens, must come on your terms. It must follow real change, real accountability. And in its absence, withholding forgiveness is not bitterness, it is self-preservation. Some say holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But this is a shallow quote, often weaponized to silence people who are rightfully hurt. Because sometimes anger is the alarm system that tells you your boundaries were breached. Sometimes anger is the fire that clears the forest for something new to grow. Evelyn's refusal to donate her kidney was not cruelty. It was the loudest declaration of self-worth a person can make. She was not seeking vengeance. She did not wish suffering upon Clara. She simply chose herself. And in doing so, she showed us that saying, "No," can be the most powerful thing you ever do. It is not heartless to protect your peace. It is not selfish to refuse someone access to your body, your time, your resources, especially someone who never respected them in the first place. Boundaries are not walls to keep love out. They are doors with locks to decide who is worthy to enter. There's another lesson here, too, quiet but steady. Family is not who shares your blood, but who shares your values, your respect, your safety. James and his family, the life Evelyn built in Minnesota, were not replacements for what she lost. They were evidence that she had never lost anything worth keeping. The love she found wasn't flashy. It wasn't chaotic or filled with drama. It was consistent, gentle, true. Sometimes, we grow up believing that real love has to be wild, that family means sacrificing endlessly, that forgiveness is the only way forward. But this story flips that script. It tells us, you don't have to bleed to prove your loyalty. You don't have to open your door to those who burned your house down. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep anyone warm. Some people cannot be saved. Some people do not want to change. And it is not your job to fix them. It is not your job to carry their consequences. The moment Evelyn walked out of that hospital room without looking back, she reclaimed her story. She rewrote the ending. She told the world, and herself, that her life would no longer be defined by what was done to her, but by what she chose next. And what she chose was peace. Real peace. The kind that comes when you no longer seek permission to be whole. The kind that comes when you build a family rooted not in obligation, but in love that shows up every day and proves itself through actions, not apologies. This story reminds us that healing isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it's brutal. Sometimes it looks like saying no to a dying sister and walking away. But that doesn't make it wrong. That makes it honest. And there is nothing more liberating than living your truth, unburdened by the weight of who you're supposed to be. So if you take anything from Evelyn's story, let it be this: your peace is not up for negotiation. Your worth is not measured by how much you forgive. And your family is not defined by DNA, but by who chooses to love you right. Let go of what hurts. Hold on to what heals. And never, ever apologize for choosing yourself.